Well, if you're looking at the day, it is Thursday. Oh, my word. Another Thursday. We're almost the end of the month. Oh, my God. We got one more week till the end of the month. We'll be in November. And then you know what that means. Holidays around the corner. And Christmas. Well, Thanksgiving first, then Christmas. And then Happy New Year 2026 coming around the corner. It's sooner than later. If you clicked on this, welcome to another edition of Otaku Thursday right here on Cuticast TV. Welcome aboard to especially those anime and manga aficionados out there. Those who do love to purvey good content. You know, the masterpieces, the artistic expression that is put into these animes and into these mangas, and the love that is put into it as well. So much that basically there are those out there who just want to stop us from watching these things. I mean, this is an issue that's been going on. But before we get into today's episode, just want to take that moment for you to drop a comment, like, share this video, and hit that subscribe button. I mean, we're about what is it? We're about 1420, 1425, somewhere around there. Let's try to get to 1500 before the end of the year. Let's try to push to 2000. I would really love to see us at 2000 before we hit 2026. You know, it's kind of hard, and I'll tell you this: it's never easy on YouTube. When people say, "Well, how can I get started?" You can get a great concept on YouTube, but you know, with all the politics and the algorithms and all the bullshit on it, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. But also, it was very difficult back in my public access days here in NYC on what they used to call Manhattan Cable TV. You know, we used to work on a lot of shows here of all variations, and this is before the anime industry really kicked in. So you didn't have too many people talk about the anime industry. You talk more about comics, you know, back then, because anime was still underground at that point, but was just starting to, you know, reach out and to get everybody in gear. Those who were going to be fans, people like in my age group, which we're still fans today. People said, "Oh, you just watch cartoons. You're just a little child." I said, "No. An anime on that is just another form of storytelling. Just like a book, just like a comic book. You know, with manga, it's telling a story. It's how a story is told. You got to remember, the cavemen wrote cave drawings on the walls. Those were storytelling. They were telling something on those walls. It wasn't live action or anything. There was no such thing as television back then or anything to that nature. They wrote it on the walls. We continue to do things similar to that today, and that's in the form of animation. Is that the form of putting it in a book, like in a manga or a comic? I mean, even in a regular book novelization. So, you know, take this moment, hit that subscribe. You know, we would really appreciate it. You know, it's very important we move up in that algorithm to that point. Also, remember, we do have a merch shop. Right now, we've extended the 10% off. In fact, we're going to extend it straight through till about before Thanksgiving. So about the week before Thanksgiving, we're extending it further on there. We just have to make the changes. Right, you know, currently I have it listed as the 1st of November, but I think I'm going to extend it even further to give those out there who are just joining us, especially those on X right now that we have been, what is they call the blue check marked. We've been blue check marked on X now. And we're seeing a larger community starting to touch base with our channels. So, basically we're getting people that have never heard of us before, finally getting to see who we are, especially on our Man with the Show X account on there. But, like I said, there's a lot going on. We came out of Comic-Con. It was like, so. I think, what is it? The Jump Fiesta is next on the docket, if I'm not mistaken on that. Even though there's like a lot of little conventions in between, which are always important as well, and small events that is going on. First of all, I just want to, tonight, just want to start off with this. Now, if you know, I'm sorry if I butcher your name. I'm sorry, because you're such a great voice actress. Masako Nozawari. If you don't know who she is, you may have heard her voice in many, many times throughout the anime history. She is the original Goku voice actress. Yes, Goku's voice actress by a woman, for those of you out there, and a great voice that she's been doing this for many, many years. Well, she's become the first voice actress to receive the prestigious Cultural Merit Recognition. Now, I don't know if that's anything like the any of the other major awards, like the Nobel Peace Prize. But from what I understand, that she, not too many people have gotten this award in the industry. I mean, she joins the ranks of Hayao Miyazaki and Shinju Miyamoto and many others who have gotten this. It was set up. The award was set up to honor was 1951, and it gives honorees a pension, which as of 1985 is about $23,300 per year. And then after the new constitution, Japan disavowed any of the government-sponsored awards to have benefits attached. 20 people are awarded the Cultural Conference Merit per year. The Order of the Culture chooses to award recipients from previous years persons of cultural merit honor. Both are chosen by the Japanese Prime Minister of the day to the people who have contributed to the advancement and development of Japanese culture in various films, including science, arts, culture, and more. And yeah, it is almost like a Japanese version of the Nobel Peace Prize, in certain ways. And, it's great that, that someone in the voice acting field, as long as that she's been around, that she's been important to anime. Very important to anime, especially to Dragon Ball. It's like I said, I've been watching Dragon Ball since I was a kid. In my I think it was the first time I seen it was in my teens. To that point, that's the original Dragon Ball series. Not the Z. I watched the original Dragon Ball. It was off on the UHF station and Spanish stations on the UHF bandwidth. For those of you who don't know what the UHF is before cable TV came into life, you had VHF and UHF. VHF was the standard network channels, 1 through 13. And anything above it was considered UHF. And there were a lot of stations in between, PBS stations. Like if you're in the tri-state area of New York, you had PBS, you had New Jersey stations that they shared on there, some unusual independent stations. Now, the company that I used to work with, the studio that I worked with in New York, right here, that did all the public access work, also had a couple of UHF stations in New York City and down in, I think Miami. Yeah, down in Miami, Florida as well. They were broadcasting down there as well. Yeah, mostly what they had was a lot of the multicultural language shows that they showed on the, and some of the telepsychics ones back then. Those days I do miss. I tell you, I miss the public access days. It was a lot of fun, a lot of energy to that point. I mean, these days, like I said, it's a little easier to do these type of shows now. The way things are via the internet and all that. Uh, you know, but back then, we used to have to hire studios that had access to broadcast networks. So here we are today. We're our own broadcast network. But again, congratulations to Masako Nozuwari. Hey, listen, let's see. Hope they do a couple more on there. But meanwhile, some other things that are going on. Right now, coming up in literally, what are we talking about? Looking at the dates. Would be about 3 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks to the day. There is a anime movie that hasn't been seen in quite some time. It's gotten a restoration. It is a fantastic anime. And basically, J-Kids, which is now run by Toho, is putting this out. It's a full restoration, which it will get a 4K Blu-ray, which is also on the way as well. I think it should be out before the end of the year. But on November 12th, there is an early screening for this, and then North American theaters will have it on the 19th and the 20th. You can get access, ticket access via, let me see, who's this? Yeah, if you go to J-Kids, they'll be able to sell you the tickets. They'll switch you over there. And the movie is called Angel's Egg. And it's from Marumuru Oshii and Yokotake Yamamoto. It is a beautiful, when we talk about art, this is what we're talking about. The art of anime. It is beautifully done. It's going to be in Dolby, which that's going to be a first for it. And it's finally, this is one of those animes that needed to be released. Yeah, that's right. It needed to be released. And, it's been a long time coming, and we're finally going to get it. And it's going to be coming very soon to that point. And then meanwhile, on the other hand, as far as newer series, we are about to get the next season, and it's for 2026, of one of the most insane animes, rom-com, ecchi anime, harem, however you want to categorize this series. 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You has gotten a season 3 order. And and the thing about it is, I love some of the comments on there. When the announcement made, they go, "Is this a hentai?" I said, "No, it's not a hentai. No, ecchi will be about the closest you get to it. I would say rom-com ecchi with harem. Let me refresh myself. Rom-com, harem, ecchi anime, and it is really good. If you have not seen this yet, it is." The first 2 seasons, it is really funny. I was just talking about it the other day. I was on Discord, the after show with Sci-Fi Snob, and I was talking about this, and I said, you gotta watch this. I mean, it's funny. And he says, well, is this like close to porn? No. It's like, it's not that. It's the main storyline itself. Is about a young guy who basically has always been, had problems getting a girlfriend, finally getting a girlfriend, doesn't realize that the God, and is told by the God of love that he's accidentally stamped him, that he will not just get one, he will not get 2, not get 5, not get 10, but 100 girlfriends. What's a guy to do? And each one of these girls have some sort of quirk. I mean, you have like one that has one of those eating quirks, where basically, I mean, she's not fat or anything. She's very thin. It's sort of like eating competition type situation. So she's thin, and basically she can eat whatever. And then you have one that's a scientist that's always messing up her formulas to that point. And then you have the MILF Cougar on there. Her daughter and her mom are his girlfriends as well. And you have a maid. You have an athletic girl, and and this is just continuing on and on. You got a girl that's shy. She's a little bookworm shyness to the point. And each one of these girls become his girlfriend. And it just keeps growing and growing. And the thing about it is, well, can't he just refuse them? Can he? No, unfortunately, the story itself holds to the point. A broken heart, can hurt you very badly. In his case, and he's told by the God of love, he says they could die. So he has to take them on as his girlfriend. Whatever he does, he must take them on. So he has a real problem ahead of him. So I think, what is he up to now? 15? I think he's up to 12 or 15. I forgot how it ended onto that. But it's as far as the number goes. But as far as what's going on, this has been really, really good. They did a reinterpretation of the manga for the end of season 2, which was, fantastically done. And if you get a moment, check that, that season finale out. It was really good on there. But looking on over perspective, that this is one of these animes that is not to be missed, no matter what people say about it. And they look at it and they said, well, it's disgusting that he's getting all these girls. It's a harem and all that. Well, that's the joke. That's in a way the joke. Some of these series are in a comedic sense where the guy gets a lot of girls. You have some of these izakais, these harem types that basically, okay, the guy's getting a lot of girls. But is that uncommon from any other comedy on television, on broadcast television throughout the history of television in a way? About relationships, about doing the weirdest things that you have to do to just basically have to deal with situations, life's problems. I go back to a series that was really good. It was Tom Hanks's original sitcom where he dressed like a woman, and he had because he needed to get an apartment. The only apartment available was a hostel for women only, so he had to dress up as a woman. If you haven't seen that series before, yeah, that was Bosom Buddies. If you didn't see that, and they would do something like that in anime. It's not uncommon. It's not a shocking type situation. It's just another type of situation that goes on for someone, that just was unlucky, and now he's really truly lucky. In fact, what was it? What was that movie? It was a Dudley Moore movie, which was really good. Mickey and Maude. And it was about how Dudley Moore married 2 women, and each other didn't know nothing about each other. And it was one of these romantic comedies that were, from I believe it was the 80s and 90s, so somewhere in the 80s and 90s. But Mickey and Maude, really, really good. It's one of those ones you don't hear too much about. And he married two women without each other knowing. How would he handle that? I mean, we see this in cartoons and comedies. What was it? American Dad did a couple of times, did that with Roger, where Roger had a separate family. They bring this all out and they said, well, we can't have these things. It's the strangest thing ever. It doesn't happen. Yeah, but it does. It does. How can you sit back and say it doesn't when you have things that are similar subject matters that are out there? But like I said, it's a lot of fun. Now, I just topped off the last of the summer anime. I'm into the fall stuff now. Just starting to get started. So it's like, they're talking about how bad One Punch Man is. I haven't seen it yet. So, I'm hearing what the issues are, but I got to see it first before I really comment on that. Before you ask in the comments. some of the other shows, I'm just still working on it. There's something, when you do show like this, and then you have Man with the Show, and we separate that with the New York Big Apple Monday. A lot of research goes into these. It takes a little time to do that, and then on top of that, we have our other duties that we're over on Sci-Fi Snobs channel as well. Every once in a while, we on the panel of the Babylon 5 retrospective. In fact, if you look carefully for the Season 3 promo, you'll find a new promo, and it was produced by us here at Cuticast TV 364 Studios. So if you get a chance, go over Sci-Fi Snobs when he makes the announcement. He'll have a video up very soon. I don't know. Is he doing it this week? Did he do it this week? I'm not sure. Well, do check it out. I'm trying to remember if it's this week or next week. I think it's next week that he's doing it. That he's going to show it, and I think it's going to be shown also on the Sci-Fi for Me as well as a commercial. We did a nice job to it too. I mean, Sci-Fi Snob loved what we did with it. Something a little different for him, and I said sort of a thank you for having this program on his channel and some of the stuff that we've done together so far, and some of the stuff that he's come to my channel to, do that. We'll probably be doing a lot of more contributions to each other's channels. To that point, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, it reminds me of the old. Like I said, reminds me of the old days in my public access where we all work together. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's why you're seeing a lot more content creators joining forces right now. And, just now, what is it? Geeks and Gamers, that Park Place. And I forgot what the other website that now that they're joining together to bring some new content. I mean, they're not becoming one company. They're just basically going to be working together content-wise. One more subject matter before we get into the main topic today. If you're familiar with the anime Claymore, it's a real good anime on there. Some bad news. Crunchyroll, it looks like they're removing it from their streaming site. So right now, there's nobody streaming Claymore. And before you say, well, what about Roku and all that? Those were all links to Crunchyroll. The only alternative you have is basically getting it in physical media, which, if you can get it, it's well over $200. I think I've seen it as high as $300 to $400 on eBay. And most of the other sites, they're either out of stock, or waiting for a refill on it, which may not happen. We know that from the Tron debacle to that point. So, and see, this is the other reason why, one of the reasons why, a lot of people, a lot of anime fans and manga fans, they go straight right to pirated sites. Because you have companies like Crunchyroll that removes the product that the customers want to see and remove it on there. I mean, if they're relicensing it out to another site, that'll be great. If Tubi gets it or one of the other streaming sites, that's fine. But, when you're advertising it that we're pulling it, it won't be available anywhere else. That's an issue. That's a major issue. And like I said, that's another reason why, piracy is still very important. And considering that Crunchyroll started out as a pirated site, most people don't realize that Crunchyroll originally was a pirated site until they went legitimate, to that point. And look where they are today. So if you can find it on a pirated site, yeah, do watch it. If you find it on a physical media, I highly recommend getting it on physical media if you can get it. If you want to spend that money for it. Right now I have somebody in the search for it for me. So I'll be able to get it. I was supposed to get it a while back. I didn't get a chance to order it. That's my fault. Boo on me, to the point. So let's finish with this story today. Now, lately, how can we put this? We've been hearing this online as of late. We've been hearing anime tourist or manga tourist that's being thrown around lately, fake fans to that point. Whereas you have those out there who claiming that there is big anime fans for many years now, and they try to push out. Well, we got this and we got that. This is good, this is bad, and they're not really into it to that point. And the worst contributors is the mainstream media. Especially the online stuff. Because, you get all these guys that write articles. I mean, it's probably for clickbait in most cases. But when you look at the article itself and you read it and you say to yourself, really, is this what they're going to? Is this really what they're looking at as far as this particular, why they don't think it's a masterpiece? They think it's over-sexualized, that basically it's sexist, it's racist, all the things are above on there. But I've always said this. I said this many times. Give me an anime that you think is controversial. I could find it probably most likely Hollywood has done something of a similar nature or in this subject matter. Or somewhere else in the world that they've done this as a maybe TV series or as a movie. I mean, we just said earlier, we were talking about 100 Girlfriends. You could probably go out and find something similar to it. Like I said, Harold, Mickey and Maude, the Dudley Moore movie. He's about a guy who marries 2 women. You can say, well, okay, it's not 100 Girlfriends, but there's an anime called 100 Girlfriends We Really, Really Love You. And, but you have this guy who's in love with 2 women. Not unheard of. Not unheard of before. So why can't someone make of it and do a good job of it? And that's the one thing with anime. Anime does a good job in the productions that they do. Now, Screen Rant put out an article, and this is back on the 12th of October. So this is just recently. This was published. The article is written by Hannah Diffie. Now, don't go and bother her. Don't slam her on the internet, something like that. But she's someone who is a self-publisher, senior writer that handles the entertainment industry. She writes articles about anime and manga, and she wrote this article out. And I've heard this before many years ago, back originally. After a couple of years that this has been out, that this particular series, why is it so great? Why is this series so great? And the series we're talking about is Neon Genesis Evangelion. I think one of the best animes in history. It's in my top 10 as far as the best animes in history. It is very well done. It takes up very close subject matters that we deal with in today's society, even in 2025 in today's society. And that's the thing. A lot of these people, they look at this, and when they're tackling certain subject matters, they don't want those subject matters to be pushed out. Now, you might say, well, they've gotten political. No, it's nothing to do with political. There's a difference between being political and what they're doing in Hollywood than showing an anime that is, taking subject matters that are close to the heart in a story. Especially from the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, as basically Hideki Anno, who basically he directed and created it. And people will say like, well, he doesn't understand. He just created a story. Well, he based some of the story on the problems he had. He went through a time of depression to the self. One major thing that is happening in Japan is people that are closing themselves out to the world. That basically they just literally stay at home all the time, stay on the internet, playing games or reading or stuff like that. They order out delivery all the time. They don't really talk to people. They're not on the phone with people. They just literally close themselves out. And this has been for quite some time now that this is happening in Japan, and it's happening here too. We have a mental health issue throughout the world, including the United States. And there are some stories out there that predates the major problem. And you look back at it and you say, okay, they got it before we were able to realize what's going on. Now, in the 90s, when Evangelion came out, this was really different, going to a different level. Most people will take this to the situation that the way its depth on psychological depth, complex characters, profoundly thematic exploration of depression, trauma, and existentialism. And you look to the point that you have so many things that are happening in this series. And and the thing they point out first is the fan service. They said, oh, well, all the sexism, the fan service, that thing in the hospital situation and all that. Well, I'm going to read a little bit of this Hanley Diffrey's article. It's called, I Don't Get Why Evangelion is Called a Masterpiece. When people talk about anime masterpieces, Neon Genesis Evangelion almost always enters the conversation. It is often cited as a revolutionary artistic milestone that redefined storytelling in anime. But after watching both the original 1995 series and its follow-up films, I can't help wonder what exactly makes it so special for me. The acclaim doesn't just line up with the experiences I had watching it. While I respect Evangelion's place in anime history and understand why it left such a strong cultural footprint, I find myself disconnected from its story, characters, and tone. There is a difference between something being influential and being enjoyable or meaningful, despite its reputation as a deep exploration of the human psyche. Evangelion felt more like a messy experiment than a masterpiece. And see, the thing is, she got it all wrong here. A deep dive in the human psyche and the human experience is something that, anime has done. Graveyard of the Fireflies, that that is depressing as hell, but it's a really, really good film discussing about, trying to survive after a nuclear sort of you could say it's a nuclear holocaust in a way, is the bombing of Hiroshima. Trying to survive during the radiation that's going on there. But reading on, one of the hardest aspects of Evangelion to get past of its persuasive over-sexualization of teenage characters. Asuka and Rei, two of the most important figures in the story, are constantly shown in a way that feel voyeuristic and unnecessary. Their skin-tight plug suits and lingering camera angles undermine what could have been compelling character arcs about trauma, identity, and growth. But see right there, you didn't get it. Let me go back again onto this. And she says that two of the most important figures in the story, they're constantly shown in ways that feel voyeuristic and unnecessary. If you live through the last several decades now, models, MTV music, jean commercials and stuff like that, clothing commercials, and just general in life, to show what teens were wearing in that period. And you look at now it's awful, what the kids are wearing these days. They just literally, there's no style left. But you look to the point that Asuka and Rei are two different characters. Yes, they're wearing tight plug suits, but these are uniforms to the point. And, to have these kind of things, you're showing one level of a look that basically is driven during this era, especially during the 90s. 90s, you were changing up to the point. But when you look to the lingering camera angles, that's an artistic expression of how to look at it. look at a original Gene commercial back in the 80s and the angles and stuff. You're trying to show a character. Well, actually, you're trying to sell genes, and you show it as, the character of the fit of the gene, because that's what you want. You want the look, how it's going to look on you. Here you have people that are just showing what they look like for that era. Let's read on. Even worse, certain scenes cross the line between uncomfortable and to outright disturbing. It's about trauma. As I said before, this is not a happy story. Even though, spoilers, it does end happily ever after in the newer versions that was released. But, we're not talking about happy here to this point. The infamous hospital sequence of on Shinji and unconscious Asuka isn't just tasteless, it's indefensible. For a series supposedly about depression and loneliness, moments like these feel exploitative rather than an insight, instead empathy or reflection. I felt a discomfort and frustration. But you have to put to the point of the trauma they are all going through. You have kids. Okay, these are kids. These are young teens that are being used as weapons. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They're being used as weapons in these, in these machines. They haven't been allowed to grow up properly. They've been thrust into, being adults. They don't understand what it is, how can we put it? To the point, the sexual, they say, well, the over-sexualization. They don't understand this at this point. They don't have parents sitting there saying, oh, that's wrong to do. They just basically outright, they're soldiers. That's what they are. But without the knowledge that it's needed to be human beings. Reading on, it's not just about those isolated scenes either. The relationships between adults and minors in Evangelion raise a serious ethical question that the story never meaningfully addressed. It's not supposed to really address. It is the story itself. Misako interactions with Shinji, for instance, often teeter into inappropriate and pedophilic territory. The show plays with boundaries in a way that feels less social commentary and more like shock value. It left me wondering how this content contributes to the supposedly brilliant people's praise. Because, like I said, some of these people have become soldiers at a young age. Also, here's the other part of this, and most people don't realize with this story. The second impact of the main story on there has taken out a good chunk of this planet. People are living in places below, they're like almost below ground of what's left of the population. Similar to Attack on Titan in 86, you're dealing in war zones. The innocence in itself are those who are not fighting, that they're trying to survive while other people are fighting around them. And then those who are thrusted into battle when they shouldn't be. Reading on, another issue I had with Evangelion is how the needless confusing it becomes. I understand that it's part of its reputation comes from its complex symbolism and psychological depth, but there's a difference between being profound and being incomprehensible. Evangelion often mistakes ambiguity for artistry, laying vague, religious, iconic, and cryptic dialogue without giving viewers much to hold on to. That's the point. It makes you want to think to this point of, of religion, of how religion is being used in a part of war. That basically, you got these creatures called angels that they're trying to stop. Why are they trying to stop them? You're trying to figure out through the whole thing that, the destruction and the way it goes, you find out what, this whole situation that they're reshaping the world. It's not that I dislike the complex narratives. No, you don't understand. You want everything basic and simple to you. Series like Attack on Titan in 86 tackles similar weight themes like war, identity, and existential dread, yet it manages to communicate them with a clarity and an emotional renaissance. Evangelion, by contrast, feels like it's trying too hard to appear intellectually. Its symbolism, while fascinating in theory, rarely connects meaningfully to the character's actual struggles. But see, that's the thing. Getting through life is never, it's not. You put it to the point. It's not a Brady Bunch episode. 30 minutes, you resolve it in. Which that's what happens with some of this anime. It's resolved either in 30 minutes or in 4 or 5 episodes. Here you have an anime that has gone through an entire series, and still it needs a lot more explaining to do. And that is the hint. Is you looking at a painting, trying to understand the painting on the wall, and it makes you think. You're not going to have all the answers. Do you understand? All the answers are not going to come to you. As much as you think you can answer certain amount of things, other things are going to crop up right behind it. And that is the artistic expression of being a masterpiece. If you can get someone to look at a painting and come back to that painting every day and they find something else different with it, that is what Neon Genesis Evangelion is. The last 2 episodes are often defended as misunderstood genius, which it is. But to me, they feel more like a byproduct of production chaos than deliberate artistry. The show's creator, Hideki Anno, has admitted to battling severe depression during the production. And exactly what I said before. This is something he's been through. And he's taken that feeling and has put it on paper and then onto video and onto film. Continuing, which may explain the raw, fragmented storytelling. While the context makes Evangelion an interesting case study, it doesn't automatically make it good storytelling. Sure, it does. Even the end of Evangelion, the film that meant to fix the ending, felt more like the assault on the audiences than resolution. Its surreal imagery and disjointed pace left me cold. I could see the ambition behind it, but ambition alone doesn't make it something meaningful. There is a fine line between a deep introspective and self-indulgence, and Evangelion too often crosses the latter. Now, I would suggest read the rest of this on there from Screen Rant, but I'm just going to put in this other perspective so we don't go into a real, I want to go into a deep dive, but I don't want to, knock you guys out. And I'm going to go through several things. The psychological and theme of complexity. The series uses giant robots, Evangelions, and monsters as a backdrop to explore the deep psychological studies of its teenage pawns who suffered trauma, depression, and self-loathing. Look at Shinji. This is a guy whose mother is gone. His father has sent him away. Now his father has has called for him to come back because he might be able to use him as a weapon. He doesn't consider him as a son. He considers him as a tool to his objective. That first 2-3 episodes alone, look at the look of his father and me with his son, where basically, he looks at his dad and he says, "Dad, I'm home," and all that. And he's like, "Uh-huh. So you're here." It's kind of that kind of situation. And the thing about it is the characters are intended, flawed, cowardly, insecure, self-destructive, which it kind of makes it more relatable and human than the typical anime protagonist. Do you understand? You look at a ton of these. You hit Robotech, you hit Macross, you hit all these other mech series. And they have emotional struggles. Yeah, obviously they do have emotional struggles to the point. But they keep it to one level. And they don't go beyond that. And here, Evangelion goes deeper than what most people would realize for something like that. There are some out there you might want to get close to that will get close to Evangelion, but they're not going to be a Evangelion, a replacement or, to that point. Evangelion delves into the complex ideas like existentialism, the nature of the conscience, the meaning of life, the painful conflict, desire for connection, and the fear of rejection. Because there is rejection in this. You see, Ray's attitude to the situation. I mean, she doesn't, she has no emotion, really, to that point. Whereas Suka, she has a lot, she's like literally, she's a little bitchy type, girl from the valley type situation, or rich gal type of point. And see, the thing about it is, when you look at other mecha series versus this, normally you see a lot of the great fighting on here. Giant robots fighting each other. But the difference is here, you're exploring the mental toll and trauma on the pilots rather than just for spectacle. They're not enjoying this. They're sitting there, Shinji's like, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to run. He wants to run away. You can't blame him. He's a young boy, a teen that's been thrust into war. You tell me, in the history of war, all the years, you go through the First, the Second World War, Vietnam, Korea, all these wars where young men, young boys who go off to war and come back as men. Do you think they don't have emotional issues after seeing death the way they've seen it? It gets me to the point that, people don't understand these things. They treat it as a point that they look at the overall view that, it's sexist. They're being sexy. Okay, it has some fan service, to understand. But we're delving into the human psyche. Now, from a production point of view, it's fantastically done. The art direction, the animation, the quality, the way the look of itself. And that's another part of the situation. You have an artwork here. And then taking that artwork and showing symbolism within that artwork that's very rich and mysterious, particularly in the religious and esoteric references, which it continues its lasting mystique and spurring endless discussion. That's the one thing. Here we are, 2025. We can still discuss the highs and lows of this series. We discuss on certain aspects, like the whole Shinji episode where, they think it's homosexuality to the point where, it's a fine line. You could say it and not. Was it on that relationship? That's the things that you look at and still argue about this day. And you can argue the ending too, which that's to that point. And that's the discussion point. Now you could say, well, isn't she discussing to the point? No, she's taking away from the point value that this is a masterpiece. It's like looking at a beautiful painting. Again, we're going to use the artwork. Let's say the Mona Lisa. We're looking at the Mona Lisa and they're saying like, I just don't like her. And he just didn't know, the painter didn't know what he was doing. To that point. He could have used a man in there, or he could use a different type of woman. It's like you're taking away to the point that the elements are not important. The hospital scene, is it important? Yes. The fan service, is it important to the series? Yes. It is the trauma, the religious aspects, meaning of life, consciousness, existentialism. Are they all important to this show? Yes. Because it is widely considered one of the most influential anime series of all time, elevating anime beyond the pulp imagery for many viewers. Because it has an unconventional narrative, an ambiguous ending that sparked decades of debate and analysis. ensuring relevance and continued discussion with the anime community and beyond. I mean, there are articles left and right that keep coming out every other year. And I'll say this straight out. Neon Genesis Evangelion isn't for everyone. I always say there's anime out there. There's something for everyone. This is for one type of anime fan. What type of fan? The lifelong fan. The connoisseur, as we always say, the connoisseur of anime. This is the wine. This is the portrait that you want to have in your collection. Because in the perspective that, in the end, the government, what's left of the governments of the world, are using these teenagers to save themselves, that basically they're going to leave it up to them and not expert soldiers. Yes, you could say Rey was, if you know the story about Rey and her story, backstory onto there, that she was made for this. And Asuka was trained also for that. Shinji wasn't. Shinji was in school. He wasn't trained for military service. He was just a teenage boy thrown in a complex situation. It's always, and you can come back and look at this in many different perspectives. It is a colossal task to try to explain this to people who's never heard of this before. And some of them are put off by this kind of anime. Always remember, Evangelion is not all what it appears to be. Always remember that. If you really want to understand Evangelion, you need to understand its creator, Hideki Anno, and what he was going through when he started working on this series. And when it comes to Shinji, he's always been a standout as far as his character. Very rare that we see his kind of character in a series like this. Which, technically it is bizarre. This is kind of a Outer Limits, Twilight Zone type of situation. Remember, Shinji is awkward, socially inept, anxious coward, for whom his connections with others are terrifying, as they open him up to the possibility of more pain, betrayal, hurt. He's isolated, miserable, and joyless. A person that runs away from any kind of challenge or conflict, finding it easier to get through life by just doing exactly as he is told, where he looks for, approval from his father. And you see how his situation intensifies. The problems, it just keeps becoming greater as we get through this series. And you say to yourself, what about, the ending? Hideki was, he was still struggling with the situations that he was going on with his personal life. So you can say that the ending is the struggle that he was going through his life, that he doesn't have an end to it. Depending on which version you understand it to be. If you understand the original TV, the anime series one, or the 3 movies, or the final 3 movies in itself. The 3 extra movies on there, 1.1, 2.2, and 3.3.0, I think is on there. And always remember, this takes place in a metaphysical plane of existence. It'll make you think. Always put that, cherish it, regard it to that point. Now, for those of you who's asking, well, where can I see this? I've never really heard of it. Well, Netflix still has the original series, the entire series on there. I believe, let me look it up as we're talking, because I'm not certain if they have the movies themselves. I know Amazon has the last three films. If you want to catch that, let's see, Neon Genesis. As we're talking here, Neon. Yes, they do have the entire series and the end of Evangelion and Death True. It is also available on Netflix. So if you get a chance, check it out. I mean, understand it. I mean, the drawings themselves, the animation is fantastically done. It is a work of art. The storyline is very complex. As I said, this is a story that basically there's a lot involved in this. You know, the human psyche, the human experience itself through many different levels of existence, and the sacrifices that you make to get to where you want to be, but you're still afraid to get there. That you rather run away due to the mental torture that you've been through. You know, the way that this runs through it's amazing. But you know, like I said, you have those out there in Final Summation. They are just going to just take this series apart and call it oversexed. You know, the sexism. That they're basically the pedophilia to the situation. They're gonna call it all these names and to the point, but they're not really looking at it from the perspective of of the human experience, the mental, the metaphysics, the metaphysical. To the point. Let me refresh myself onto there. I mean, there is stuff here that is just extremely violent in this on there, but that is part of life. Nothing is, to the point, is never that easy. You look today and what's going on out here, and all the rioting and people. I mean, we lost a guy just recently, Charlie Kirk, just for talking. For he wasn't a bad guy. He liked to talk to people. That's what he did. And they killed him for that. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with Evangelion? Look to the perspective of people come and go. Some may bring something to the table that's very important. Others that may just sacrifice their lives just to protect others. And then there are others that will just run away to the situation, or basically don't understand it and just want to take down the norm situation and try to, push their own narrative to that point. And that's what's happening here. And this is happening with anime across the board. People are trying to pull apart anime series like this. I hate to see if they try to do this with Galaxy Express 39, which is another series that's really good. That, another series about the human experience. It amazes me sometimes, how this on. So, let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts of how this is put together as far as an anime itself? What do you think, from what I've talked about, give me your life experience with this, if you've seen this before. Let me know in the comments. Like I said, there are things in here that they say that it's controversial, but it's not controversial. It is part of the story. So drop that comment, like, share, and hit that subscribe button. Very important. Keep up on the algorithm out there. Also, remember, if you haven't caught it yet, yesterday's edition of Babylon 5 Retrospective, it is available right now on Sci-Fi Snobs channel. Sunday, Top Lofty Lounge, 11 p.m. Eastern on Sci-Fi Snobs channel as well. Next week, another edition as we get to the end of season 2. I think at this point we're about 3 episodes. Yeah, with 3 episodes left at this point on the Babylon 5 season 2 retrospective. Season 3 is coming as I have created a trailer for this, and it will be shown very soon on Sci-Fi Snobs channel, so do check it out on there. So thank you very much. If you've gone to his channel, give them a subscribe, give him a little love over there on his channel, like, share to that point. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Take in some anime, take in some manga, treat it as a piece of artwork, a bottle of wine. Oh, hang on to it. Open it up. Smell it, taste it, touch it. Experience the flavor of this experience that you go through. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for watching, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe as this helps the reach of this channel. Finally, as a content viewer, you have the ability to help support this channel as new internet laws around the world will diminish our reach and affect our sponsors. If you choose to help, there are 2 ways, listed in the description below. The first link will lead you to a pay site where you can make a monetary donation. The second will lead you to our gear shop where you can buy shirts, mugs, and other gear. Discounts will be listed on the site. Once again, thank you for watching and your support.
Fuck on what you think, bitch. Make sure let me paint this.